There's something nobody tells you when you're young. They hand you time like it's infinite, like it'll always be there, like tomorrow is just another version of today, and you can always start then. Always fix it then. Always become who you're supposed to be then. But here's what I know now. The years don't slow down for you. They don't wait. They don't ask permission. They just move. And one day, one completely ordinary day, you look up from your phone, from your distractions, from the comfortable numbness of doing nothing important, and you realize years have passed. Not days, not weeks, years, and you have very little to show for them. That realization doesn't come with a warning. It comes quietly, sitting alone at night, scrolling through someone else's life, watching someone your age build something real. And a voice inside you whispers, "Why not me?" I'm going to answer that question today. Not gently, not with comfort, but with the truth that took 20 years of mistakes, failures, restarts, and breakthroughs to finally understand. Some of it will sting. Good. That means it's working. Stay with me, because this is the conversation your future self is desperately hoping someone had with you right now. Let's begin with the thing nobody wants to admit. You are not behind because you're unlucky. You are not stuck because the world is unfair. You are not failing because you're not smart enough, talented enough, or born into the right circumstances. Those are stories. Comfortable, convincing, well-rehearsed stories. And as long as you keep telling them, nothing changes. The truth is simpler and harder. You are where you are because of the decisions you've made with the time you've been given. That's it. No villain. No conspiracy. Just choices. Thousands of small choices stacked on top of each other day after day, building the exact life you're living right now. Here's what 20 years teaches you. Every hour matters. Not in a dramatic life or death way, but in a quiet, compounding, relentless way. The hour you spent watching videos you don't remember. The hour you spent comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. The hour you spent waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel motivated, waiting for the right moment that never seemed to come. Those hours are gone, and they were building something. Even when you thought you were doing nothing, you were building. Habits of avoidance, patterns of delay, a relationship with discomfort that said, run, rest, wait. Not yet. And that's the trap most people never escape. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack potential, but because they never learned to separate feelings from action. They believed that motivation had to come first. That inspiration was the fuel. That if they just felt ready, they'd finally move. But motivation is a liar. Motivation comes after you start, not before. It's the reward for moving, not the requirement. Every person who has ever built something real, a skill, a career, a body, a business, a mind worth respecting, built it on days when they didn't feel like it. On mornings when the bed was warm and the task was cold. On evenings when every excuse felt completely reasonable. They moved anyway, not because they were special, not because they had something you don't, but because they understood something that took me years to learn. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is protection. It protects you from the version of yourself that wants to stay small, the version that chooses comfort over growth, approval over authenticity, distraction over direction. Discipline is the wall between who you are and who you could be. And here's what that looks like in real life. It looks like turning your phone face down at 9 in the morning and not touching it for 2 hours. It looks like doing the work that nobody sees for months before anything visible changes. It looks like making the same boring choice every single day, long after the excitement fades. Long after it stops feeling meaningful, long after everyone around you has quit. It looks like structure, unglamorous, repetitive, daily structure. Because here's the thing about chaos, and most young people are living inside pure chaos, waking up at different times, eating randomly, studying when they feel like it, which means almost never, scrolling for hours without a single intention behind it, making decisions based entirely on what feels good right now, in this moment, with no thought for tomorrow. Chaos feels like freedom. I know. It feels like you're living spontaneously, authentically, unrestricted. But chaos is just slow destruction with a comfortable name. Structure isn't a prison. Structure is a launch pad. When you know what you're doing at 7 in the morning, your brain doesn't waste energy deciding. When you've already committed to the hour of practice, the hour of study, the hour of building, you don't negotiate with yourself. You just execute. And execution, compounded over time, is the only real difference between the life you have and the life you want. Let me tell you something about comparison, because this one quietly destroys people, and most don't even realize it's happening. You wake up and open your phone. Within 60 seconds, you've seen someone your age who looks more successful, more attractive, more put together, more loved, more everything, and something in your chest tightens. A quiet voice says, "They have it figured out." Why don't you? Here's what that voice doesn't know. It doesn't know what they went through to get there. It doesn't know the years of rejection, the private failures, the days they wanted to quit. It doesn't know that what you're seeing is a curated highlight reel of someone else's life, designed specifically to look effortless. Social media is not a documentary, it's a performance. And you are comparing your unedited, unfiltered, behind-the-scenes reality to someone else's best moments. That comparison will hollow you out if you let it. Because every second you spend measuring your worth against someone else's highlight is a second stolen from building your own story. Every time you decide you're behind because of what you see on a screen, you surrender a little more of the energy you need to actually move forward. The only comparison that matters is this one. Who were you yesterday and who are you today? That's it. That is the only race worth running. And the only person whose progress should make you feel something productive is your past self. Put the phone down. I mean that literally. Put it down. Not because phones are evil, not because technology is the enemy, but because the relationship most people have with their phones right now is not neutral. It's not passive. It's addictive, unconscious, and deeply expensive. You are trading your focus, your most valuable, finite, irreplaceable resource, for dopamine hits that last 3 seconds and leave you emptier than before. Every notification that pulls you out of concentration costs you more than a moment. It costs you the momentum that took 20 minutes to build. It costs you the depth of thought that only comes from sustained, uninterrupted focus. It costs you the work that only happens in the silence between distractions. And silence is something most people are genuinely afraid of now. Because silence means sitting with yourself. It means confronting the gap between who you are and who you said you'd be. It means hearing the questions you've been outrunning with noise and content and endless, meaningless stimulation. But that silence is exactly where your real life is waiting. The ideas that will change your direction. The clarity that will tell you what actually matters. The discipline that forms not from someone else's voice, but from your own, finally, honest, undiluted, and clear. You have to learn to sit in that discomfort and not run. I want to talk about procrastination now, because it's not what most people think it is. Procrastination is not laziness. Lazy people don't feel bad about not doing things. Procrastinators feel terrible. They feel the weight of everything undone pressing on them constantly. They think about the task, stress about the task, plan to do the task, and then do anything except the task. Procrastination is fear wearing productivity's clothes. Fear of failing, fear of not being good enough, fear that if you actually try, really commit, really give everything you have, and it still doesn't work, then what does that mean about you? At least if you never really tried, you can hold on to the story that you could have. Potential is safe. Action is vulnerable. But potential without action is just fantasy. And you've been living in that fantasy long enough. I can say that firmly because I lived in it too. I know what it feels like to have enormous ideas and zero execution. To feel like you're capable of so much while consistently doing so little. To sleep on talent night after night while telling yourself tomorrow is the day. There is no tomorrow version of you that has magically solved this. Tomorrow, you will face the same fears, the same resistance, the same pull toward comfort, unless today you decide, deliberately, consciously, uncomfortably, to move differently. Not perfectly, not completely, just differently. Dots start smaller than you think makes sense. If you can't study for 3 hours, study for 20 minutes. If you can't exercise for an hour, exercise for 10. If you can't write 1,000 words, write 1 paragraph. The size of the start does not matter. The habit of starting is everything. Because the brain that starts is different from the brain that waits. The identity that moves is different from the identity that watches. Every time you begin, even imperfectly, even briefly, you are sending yourself a message. You are saying, I am someone who does this. And over time, that message rewrites the story of who you are. That's not metaphor. That's neuroscience. That's years of lived experience talking. Now, here's a lesson it took me the longest to accept. Nobody is coming to save you. No mentor is going to appear and hand you the answers. No algorithm is going to promote you into success. No lucky break is going to compensate for the foundation you haven't built. No person, no circumstance, no event is responsible for the trajectory of your life. You are, completely, uncomfortably, permanently. And the moment you fully internalize that, not intellectually, not as a concept you nod along to, but in your bones, in your gut, in the decisions you make at 6 a.m. when no one is watching, everything shifts. Because ownership is power, not the comfortable kind, not the kind that comes with applause, the kind that works in the dark, the kind that shows up regardless, the kind that doesn't need credit, doesn't need validation, doesn't need the world to acknowledge the effort before the effort is given. When you stop looking outward for permission to begin, you discover something extraordinary. The ability was always there. The capacity was always there. It was just waiting for you to stop, pretending it wasn't your responsibility to unlock it. Let me tell you what consistency actually does to a person. Not the dramatic overnight kind. Not the transformation that makes a great story for an interview. The quiet, unsexy, completely unremarkable kind. The kind where nothing seems to be changing for weeks, for months. And then one day, someone looks at you and says, "You're different." And you realize you've been different for a while. You just couldn't see it from the inside. That's what consistency does. It changes you invisibly, then reveals you suddenly. And the people who quit, they quit in the invisible phase. They quit when the work isn't producing visible results, when the feedback isn't arriving, when the effort feels wasted. They quit 3 months before the compound interest starts paying out. They quit at the exact moment that staying would have changed everything. Don't be that person. Commit to a direction. Build the daily practice. Make it non-negotiable. Not because every day will feel meaningful, not because every session will feel productive, but because the structure, the fact that you show up, regardless of how you feel, is itself the discipline that builds everything else. Your feelings are not your orders. Your feelings are data. Sometimes useful, sometimes completely misleading. The person who moves only when they feel motivated will move rarely. The person who moves by commitment, by structure, by the identity they've chosen to build, they move daily. And daily movement, over years, creates a life that looks like luck to everyone watching from the outside. It isn't luck. It never was. You know what the most successful people you admire have in common? Not talent, not connections, not resources. They have an intolerance for stagnation. They physically cannot stay still for long, not because they're anxious or restless, but because they've cultivated a deep, personal discomfort with the gap between their current reality and their potential. They made that gap painful enough to move through. You need to make your comfort zone uncomfortable, not by punishing yourself, not by hating who you are, but by caring enough about who you're becoming to refuse to sleepwalk through the time that's building it. You have one life, one run through this experience, one chance to build the things worth building, to become the person worth becoming, to do the work that will make you proud when you look back, not with the embarrassment of wondering what could have been, but with the quiet satisfaction of someone who showed up when it was hard and didn't stop when it was easy to. 20 years teaches you this. The decisions feel small in the moment. Scrolling for one more hour feels small. Skipping today's work feels small. Saying tomorrow feels small. But those small decisions are the architecture of your life, and you are making them constantly. Whether you're aware of it or not, become aware. Wake up with intention. Protect your morning like it's worth something, because it is. Do the most important thing before the world gets loud and pulls you in every direction. Build something every single day, even if it's small, even if it's invisible, even if no one else can see it yet. Track your progress. Not obsessively, not with anxiety, but with the quiet pride of someone who takes their own development seriously. Celebrate the consistency, not just the results. The results are the evidence. The consistency is the cause. And surround yourself fiercely, deliberately, with people who are building, not people who make you feel comfortable about standing still, not people who validate your excuses because they share them, people who make you uncomfortable in the best possible way, people who remind you, just by existing, what's possible when you refuse to quit. Here is the last thing, the thing that holds all of it together. You are not too late. I know it feels that way sometimes. I know you look at where you are and where you thought you'd be, and the distance feels humiliating. I know the comparison, the delay, the years that passed without the progress you planned. I know how heavy that is to carry. But late is a story, and you can change the story. Every extraordinary life has a moment where someone decided, firmly, finally, with no more negotiation, that the old version ends here, that the excuses stop here, that the waiting stops here, that today, this ordinary, unremarkable, completely unspecial day, is the day everything actually begins. Make today that day. Not because you feel ready. You will not feel ready. Readiness is a myth sold to people who never start. Make today that day because you are tired of the weight of unrealized potential. Because the life you want is real and possible and achievable, but only if you move toward it every single day. With discipline, with structure, with the unshakable conviction that your future is worth more than your comfort. Start now, not after the video. Not when the conditions are better, not when you have more time, more energy, more clarity, more confidence. Now, because 20 years from today, you will look back at this moment and you will remember exactly who you chose to be. Make sure that person, the one looking back, feels proud of the answer. Move, build, become. The time is yours. Use it like it matters, because it does.